Yes, good afternoon. So our today's topic is cholera. Right? So we are discussing communicable diseases in which we are going through the GIT related infectious diseases. In last class we have discussed about diarrhea. Right? Now today we are going to see about cholera. Right? Is my voice clear and audible to all of you? So cholera, it is acute diarrheal disease caused by Vibrio cholera. Vibrio cholera is gram-negative organism, right? And 5 to 10% of the acute diarrheal cases are because of Vibrio cholera. Is my voice clear and audible? So cholera is characterized by profuse, painless, watery diarrhea. So in cholera, that is the characteristic feature, watery diarrhea, rice water type of diarrhea, right? Watery diarrhea or soup type of diarrhea, and it is painless, right? And profuse means more in amount. Okay, is my voice clear and audible to all of you? It is followed by, this diarrhea is followed by vomiting, rapid dehydration, and suppression of urine. So after diarrhea, there will be vomiting. Diarrhea leads to dehydration. Everybody are aware of this, right? And there will be, because of the dehydration, urine will be less excreted, leading to hypovolemic shock and death in less than 24 hours if not treated. Okay, is my voice clear and audible to all of you? Write down in chat box. Okay, I am getting reply from two students only. So again, watery diarrhea followed by vomiting, rapid dehydration and suppression of urine, hypovolemic shock and death in less than 24 hours. So this is the entry of portal of entry through mouth. So it is fecal-oral disease. After entry, it can colonize in intestine, and this is exit, right? So through fecal route, it can exit, right? So disease may lead to hypovolemic shock, acidosis, vomiting, diarrhea, and muscular cramps. So cholera stool is typically colorless, watery fluid, and there is also presence of flecks of mucus. So this stool is colorless, watery, and profuse in amount. So it is, remember, rice water stool. So stool looks like rice water. So many of you, maybe if you see the rice water, don't consider the cholera, right? So rice water stool, it is the name given for this typical type of the diarrhea. Right? Many of the students have not joined the class. Inform that our class is, that it is scheduled. We are always there on scheduled time, right? So your attendance is also being taken. Composition of this stool is bicarbonate rich. It is isotonic and electrolyte. There is also presence of electrolyte, in less amount, and protein. Right? Remember here, mainly rice water type of the diarrhea. Clinical feature result from the massive loss of the fluid and electrolyte. Yes, you know that in cholera there is massive loss of the fluid, so there will be dehydration. Dehydration leads to hypovolemia, hypovolemic shock, circulatory failure, and death. Right? And also there is, along with the dehydration, there is loss of electrolytes, loss of sodium, loss of potassium. In treated cases, it lasts for 4 to 6 days. Cholera lasts for 4 to 6 days if proper antibiotic is given, even though it lasts for 4 to 6 days, during which patient may pass total volume of the liquid stool twice his body weight. Right. So here, as you know, that volume of the liquid stool passed is twice just the body weight. So there is importance of one treatment. What should you give the patient along with antibiotic? Here there is dehydration, very much loss of the fluid. Right, fluid loss is very large in amount. Now to prevent dehydration, what should you give to the patient? We have discussed in previous class. Write down in chat box. To prevent dehydration, what should you give to the patient? Yes, quickly write down and answer. Till then, we are discussing further. Case fatality, severity may be 30 to 40%. Most severe cases, death occur within 24 hours. If there is more dehydration, most severe cases means severe dehydration. So it may lead to the death within 20 to 40, within 24 hours. So what should you give to the patient to prevent dehydration? My question was that. Epidemiological pictures, cholera occurs in all forms. It may be sporadic, means isolated forms, chuta chavaya ke, sporadic. Endemic means constant. This cholera is constant. And nowadays, because of the corona, more frequent hearing of the corona, we speak every disease as corona, but it is cholera, right? Starting word is same, cholera and corona. Endemic, so means constantly it occurs. Epidemic means outbreak, right, in limited area. Pandemic is outbreak in large area all over the country. Again, I repeat, sporadic is scattered cases. Sporadic means scattered cases, scattered, right? Scattered cases in some places. Endemic is constant presence of the disease. Epidemic is rise, say for rise in Gujarat, right? Rise in India. Pandemic is rise in all over the world, right? That is pandemic. Now, who has answered? ORS, IV fluid, very good. Ringer lactate, very good. I have got many answers. ORS. Probably you are typing, but it may be taking some few minutes to reach up to me. That is that. So ORS, oral rehydration salt, is the therapy. So understand this word very well. Sporadic, endemic, epidemic, and pandemic. Epidemic is abrupt and frequent, right? Abrupt means ekaek, and frequent so many times. It strikes adult as well as children, both are affected, and there is also potential to spread fast and cause death. It can spread fast and cause death within 24 hours, as we have seen. Epidemic is self-limiting. It can reach peak and gradually subside as the force of infection decline, right? And self-limiting due to temporary immunity and subclinical, because it can decrease by itself. Pandemic of cholera. India is specifically the delta area of Ganga. In India, specifically delta area, you know, the delta triangle in Ganga region and Brahmaputra region, these are considered as the homeland of cholera, where frequently cholera tends to occur. Delta region, delta triangle of Ganga and Brahmaputra, situated near West Bengal, I think, right? There, this cholera is frequently found. That is considered as the homeland of cholera. Till 19th century, cholera was confined only to India, but it has spread to Western country from India. So India is the major source of infection for Western country as well as other country for cholera pandemic. So you can see that cholera pandemic since 1817. Currently, you know that we are passing through the pandemic of corona, but pandemic of cholera. Times you have seen that 1, 2, 3. Right? 4 of years, you can say that this pandemic lasts for 5 years, 6 years, in fact. Here you can see that, right? So many years pandemic has lasted. So this cholera pandemic, that was before 19th century, before birth of our grandfather. You can see that is before birth of your grandfather's father, even. Right? Before in the era of Gandhiji, you can see that 1963, Gandhiji was born in this period, 1963 to 1970, 1969, if you remember the birth date of Gandhiji. Right? So during that time, cholera pandemic was frequent, so much frequent, right? And all the time, origin is from India. Right? Pathogen has not been identified because of the poor lab diagnosis technique. At that time, lab diagnosis was not available as available nowadays. Right? After 1981, we could diagnose that it is because of B. cholera 01 or classical. Right? You can see that last pandemic was in 1992 in Madras. Right? And this is photograph of cholera epidemic in Congo. Right? Epidemic in Bangladesh, so many patients. Nowadays, the scenario of corona is as such like that, right? In hospitals, in isolation centers. So initially, it is confined to India and spread to Persian Gulf in 1829 through the British Army. First case in London was reported in February 1832. Cholera case, first case was reported in London. 6 pandemic had occurred in India and Bangladesh. Pathogen was identified during the 5th pandemic. We have seen by Robert Koch. So only in 5th pandemic, V. cholera, Vibrio cholera was identified by Robert Koch. You may have remembered, you may have heard this name, Robert Koch, scientist who have identified this bacteria, Vibrio cholera. After 6th pandemic, there was a silence for about 40 years after the last pandemic, right? 7th pandemic originated in this Sulawesi, Indonesia. It is first to originate from outside of the India. So all the time we have seen that pandemic have originated from India, right? Pandemic, but you mark this 7th pandemic that is from Indonesia, not from India. Right? Every time is from India, origin is from India. Like in case of the corona, origin is from China, but cholera has been originated from India. This is interesting thing. You should, I think you will be hearing this nice to know thing, right? Interesting, very much interesting. You may find these things. And so 7th pandemic originated that was the first pandemic to originate outside India and reach India in 1964. Originated in 61 in Indonesia and reached to India in 1964 and caused by eel tar type of the Vibrio cholera. So it is mild and asymptomatic infection. Many a times mild and asymptomatic. Mortality rate was also very low at that time. 7th pandemic carrier rate was high, right? Like in case of the corona, in corona also about 80% patients are mild and asymptomatic, right? And mortality rate is less than 3% nowadays. So this is how pandemic have originated, majority from India and spread to this Africa, and right. And 7th pandemic originated from Indonesia, right? Biotype during the outbreak. During 5th and 6th pandemic, up to 4th pandemic, as you know that cholera was not identified. Biotype was not identified, so there is no question of biotype. In 5th and 6th pandemic, with classical Vibrio 01, that is the biotype. In 7th pandemic, EL tar Vibrio 01. Remember, there is difference. Classical Vibrio and that is EL tar. New epidemic strain of 0139 serotype. Just remember this. These are only 2-3 strains, right? So you said if you remember, that will be nice to hear from you. Classical Vibrio 01, EL tar Vibrio 01, and endemic 0139 serotype. Right? That is emerged from in Madras in 1992. So there is 0139 serotype. That is the threat of 8th pandemic. It has emerged in 1992 at Madras and replaced EL tar biotype. It is more invasive. Right? More invasive means causing more invasion, more infection. Global threat because 0139 strain is capsulated. It has the capsule like I have drawn, right? So vaccine against 01 could not protect against 0139. So vaccine against one strain of the bacteria or one strain of the virus cannot protect against the another strain, and that is why there is difficulty in developing vaccine against corona also. There are so many strains of the corona as per the reports, various reports. So vaccine against one strain may not protect against another strain. Right? So there are always chances of getting the corona, right? As of now. No natural antibody in human population, right? Surprisingly, EL tar has gained its dominance. So here, delta triangle, I think this is delta triangle located here, Ganga and Brahmaputra, if I am not wrong about the geography. Endemicity of the cholera is endemic in India and Bangladesh, and it is not stable. Endemic means constant presence of the disease. This is constant presence. Epidemic is sudden rise, right? and pandemic is global rise of the cases, right? Endemicity is not stable, seasonal fluctuations can occur, right? Endemic tendency is so high in ELTR biotype. Inter-epidemic period. So during two epidemics, what happens that there is development of the long-term carrier, subclinical cases. During these two epidemic, persistence of the organism in environment, in free living or altered form. So organism develop, right, in carriers, in subclinical cases, in environment, in free living form during inter-epidemic period. So that was about global and world epidemic scenario of the global as well as India, right? So now we are going to see about epidemiological determinants. So in that, as you know, agent factor, host factor, and environmental factor we are going to discuss. Agent, host, and environment. So agent, positive agent for Vibrio cholera is same Vibrio cholera. Right? For cholera, this is, you can see that Vibrio cholera organism in photograph. It is rigid cow. It has the rigid cow rod, first discovered by Robert Koch. You can see another electron microscopic photograph of Vibrio cholera. You can see so many, plenty of Vibrio cholera organism, and this is some organism here shown also. Motility is by single polar flagellum. This is flagellum. Yes, single flagellum. You can see only single. It is originated from the pole. This is pole, right? So it is called single polar flagellum. It is facultative and aerobic, requires oxygen. Mucus flax are present in acute diarrhea, and this is having the fish in stream appearance. And you can see that fish in stream, like seen as a fish in stream. Types of Vibrio, you know very well. Two groups, two serotypes, 01 and non-01. 01 serotype is most common cause of cholera, and 0139, it is a non-01 type caused in 1992, 0139. Serogroup has been also divided into two biotypes. Right? Classical and ELTR, I have told you previously to remember this, classical and ELTR. Each biotype has further three serotypes. Which are these three serotypes? Each biotype, classical or ELTR. This is first serotype is Ogawa, second is Inaba, and third is Hikojima. Names are very interesting, and it is easy to remember. Ogawa, Inaba, and Hikojima. Again, I repeat, there are mainly two types of Vibrio, 01 and non-01. 01 is most common. And this serotype has been also divided into two biotypes. This is serotype, now two biotypes. Which two biotypes? Classical and ELTR. Again, this biotype has been divided into three serotypes: Ogawa, Inaba, Hikojima. I think it is very interesting to remember. It is very easy and interesting if you find this. Right? Very easy to remember. Resistance, it is susceptible to heat drying and acid if we make the whatever the fecal material dry by heat or treat it with acid. So this organism will be killed. It resists high alkalinity, right? And killed within 30 minutes by boiling at 56 degrees centigrade. This is very important. Vibrio cholera are killed within 30 minutes by boiling at 56 degree temperature. If your water is containing this Vibrio cholera, water is polluted by Vibrio cholera organism. So if you drink the water after boiling at 56 degrees centigrade, it will be killed within 30 minutes. That's why boiling water is recommended. Right? Boiling of this fluid is recommended because this type of the organism may be killed. A majority of them may be killed by boiling. ELTR survival lasts longer than classical. Survival in water, grossly contaminated water, Gangas, right? Here they do not survive. Clean water survive up to 30 days. Survival in water is influenced by pH, temperature, high pH, I mean to say low pH, if acidity is there, it cannot survive longer period of time. If temperature is more, it cannot survive. Salinity and other organism, presence of other organism. Disinfection. Susceptible, this Vibrio cholera are susceptible to common disinfectant. EL is more susceptible. It is easily destroyed by coal tar, like cresol. This disinfectant is used to destroy Vibrio cholera organism. So, if in a ward, if any patient vomits or if any patient pass stool, it should be disinfected with the cresol. This is very common disinfectant used in ward for disinfection of the stool, like, or by bleaching powder also. Right? Toxin production. Vibrio cholera multiply in lumen of the intestine, producing powerful exotoxin. So after entering Vibrio cholera, it multiply in our intestine and produce powerful exotoxin. This toxin production leads to diarrhea by affecting the adenyl cyclase CAMP pathway. So this toxin, what toxin which is produced by Vibrio cholera, it activates adenyl cyclase, and so because of the activation of adenyl cyclase CAMP pathway, there will be more secretion of the water in intestine, leading to diarrhea. So that is seen in figure over here. Classical versus ELTR, no need to go into such detail. Reservoir of the infection. Human being is only reservoir of the infection. Like in case of the corona, human being is the reservoir of the infection, right? This may be a case or carrier. Right? Ratio of severe to mild cases 1:5. Means uh, at every 5 mild case there is 1 severe case. So mild cases are very much more. I mean to say more cases. Mild cases are more. Here you can see in ELTR 1:25 to 1:100. For cases maintain endemicity of the reservoir, right? Because of the mild cases, endemicity is maintained. Infective material, source of infection are cholera stools which contain Vibrio cholera organism, and vomit. Right? Number of Vibrio, you can see that in case per ml of the stool, in case is 10⁻⁷ to 10⁻⁹. Number of Vibrio are secreted in stool per ml. In carrier, 10⁻² to 10⁵. 10⁻² is 100. 10⁵ is 100, then 1,000, then 10,000, 1 lakh. 1 lakh, up to 1 lakh organism are per ml are secreted in stool by carrier, and that is 1 lakh, then 10 lakh, 1 crore. 1 crore to 10 crore, 1 arab. 1 arab organisms, right? These are secreted by per ml of the stool. Right? Infective dose, cholera is dose related. If there are 10⁻11 organism, that is the infective dose, right? Only the minimum amount of this organism are needed to cause Vibrio cholera. Infection, that is by ingestion, that is by drinking contaminated water, eating contaminated food by Vibrio cholera, right? Vibrio are more susceptible to acid. So gastric acid is the effective barrier against small dose. If we consume less than 10⁻11 organism, then our acidity can easily destroy it. If number of the organism consumed in water or stool are less, right, then our acidity can easily destroy this, right? So many times we may be consuming the Vibrio cholera along with the food or along with the water, but every time we do not suffer from the cholera because our acidity, HCl present in stomach, can easily destroy this small amount of the organism. So up to that, I think you may have understood it very well. These are the interesting things you may find. So write down in chat box what are the serotypes, biotypes of the cholera organism. Write down in chat box what are the serotypes and biotypes, whatever you remember. Serotypes, biotype, write down in chat box. Few question answer session. What are the serotypes and biotypes of the cholera organism? waiting for your reply. Yes, I'm waiting for your reply. Cholera organism. Till then, we discuss somewhat further. Case is infectious for 7 to 10 days. If any person is suffering from the cholera, then it may transmit infection for up to 7 to 10 days to other person. Convalescent carrier, it can be infectious for 2 to 3 weeks. Carrier is infectious for 2 to 3 weeks. Convalescent carrier, which means who have recovered from infection. Chronic carrier up to 10 years. See, many person may become chronic carrier and it may transmit organism in the stool up to 10 years. And chronic carriers in classical are more in than in ELTR. So, hint is already in slide. I have asked you that what are the serotypes and biotypes of organism. Already the hint is given in slide. So, you may have written. I am not getting your reply from anyone. So, carrier in cholera, definition of the carrier, an apparently healthy person excreting Vibrio cholera in stool is considered as the carrier. So, here the person is healthy. The person is not having any symptom. Even though excretes Vibrio cholera organism in the stool is considered as the carrier and is responsible for maintenance of the organism. Right? Carrier excrete less number of the organism than cases. Obviously, carrier excrete less number. So 01 and non-01, classical and Nealt are very good serotypes. Ogawa, Inaba, Hikojima, these are not serotypes, these are biotypes. Very good. So serotypes are 01, non-01, biotype are classical, ELTAR, and further serotype are Ogawa, Inaba, and Hikojima. Jaimin has replied all these things correctly. Although all other have replied, but all the serotypes, biotypes correctly. Right. Types of the carrier: preclinical or incubatory carrier means preclinical who have not developed symptom. Incubation, they are in incubation period who have still not developed symptom. Convalescent carrier means who have developed symptom and recovered. Recovery phase, who are in recovery phase. Contact or healthy carrier, right? And chronic carrier. These are the 4 types of carrier. Again, I repeat: preclinical or incubatory carrier, convalescent carrier, contact or healthy carrier, and chronic carrier. Preclinical carrier state during the incubation period. So they are called as incubatory carrier. Carrier state during incubation period. They are the potential source of the infection. They are potential patients. They may develop into the clinical symptom after 1 to 5 days. Right. Convalescent carrier patient who have recovered, right, from an attack, right? And even though they continue to excrete Vibrio cholera during convalescence. So preclinical are those who have still not developed disease, who will develop disease after these 5 days. Convalescent carrier are those who have recovered from the attack, right? And they can excrete Vibrio cholera for 2 to 3 weeks. It occurs in patients with here there is no effective antibiotic treatment in convalescent carrier. Right? And these convalescent carrier may often become chronic or long-term carriers. Contact or healthy carrier, this result in subclinical infection. They have contracted infection through case or infectious environment. Duration of this is less than 10 days. Stool culture may be positive and they are important instead of the cholera. They are healthy carrier. They are the context, right, of the other patients. They have not developed the symptoms, but they can excrete the organism. Chronic carrier, they occur infrequently, not frequently, means very less in amount, but they can transmit infection for up to 10 years. And here gallbladder is infected in chronic carrier. Lab diagnosis in carrier, lab diagnosis by media, by enrichment media, right? So various culture media are important in lab diagnosis of the carrier. Now host factor. Okay, so do you remember about the agent factors? Agent factor name is Vibrio cholera, right? And they are having the single flagellum, right? And their appearance is like a fish in case of the stream, right? What is the appearance of stool in cholera? Write down in chat box. Appearance of the stool in cholera. Will we discuss further things? All age and both sexes are affected equally by cholera. Right? I have asked back the question: what is appearance of stool? How does the stool look like in cholera? Endemic area, there is high incidence of the cholera seen in children, right? Gastric acid can destroy Vibrio cholera organism if the pH is less than 5. It is there in our stomach. Because of the population mobility, because of the movement of the population, it can result in increased risk. This is common factor. Migration, this is called migration. Migration may lead to the increased risk of the epidemic in certain area where the people have migrated, right? What is the appearance of stool? Yes, rice, watery stool. Many students have replied. Very good. Okay. What are the types of carrier? Just we have learned types of carrier in cholera. Write down in chat box. What are the types of carrier? Write down in chat box. Types of carrier will be discussed further. Economic stress, higher incidence of cholera in seen in low socio-economic group due to poor hygiene, right? So any infectious disease, not only cholera, I have told you many times that all the infectious diseases are seen higher in amount, higher in incidence in low socio-economic group due to poor hygiene. Immunity, natural immunity is not present. Local immunity in intestine, right? Vaccine may be temporary or partial immunity. It can provide for 3 to 6 months. So there is no role of vaccine for giving total immunity, right? Environmental factors. What are the factors which can lead to the cholera? Poor environmental sanitation, low standards of personal hygiene, lack of health education, poor quality of the life, habits which favor water or soil pollution. It can, so all the insanitation, uncleanliness, lack of hygiene, all these things are the poor environmental condition can lead to cholera. Okay, I have asked the types of carrier. What are the types of carrier? Rice, water, stool, you have replied quickly. But these types of carrier, 4 types of carrier we have discussed. Just name them. Mode of transmission occur mainly from man to man. There are 3 routes. Fecally contaminated water means the water which is contaminated by fecal material, by stool. If we drink this, it may lead to the cholera. Contaminated food or contaminated drinks, contaminated water. Right? If we drink this contaminated water and food, and direct contact. Has anybody replied? Yes, preclinical, incubatory, convalescent, very good. Many students have replied. Right? Convalescent, healthy, chronic, very good. Chronic carrier stage may last up to how many months, days, years? Chronic carrier may last up to how many months or days or years? Chronic carrier stage. For 10 years, very good. So, mode of transmission, again I repeat, fecally contaminated water, contaminated food or drinks, and direct contact. Pathogenesis, after entering our GI tree, it can cause chemotaxis, mucinous activity, right? And these are the part of what your pathology part. So here I am not going to highlight this much more, right? So chemotoxicity is what? Chemotaxis. It is because of the, just remember this, there are 2 subunit, A subunit and B subunit in bacteria. Right? This is toxin, heavy toxin and light toxin. A subunit is heavy toxin and B subunit is light toxin. This toxin can lead to the more secretion of water in intestine because of the adrenal cyclase activity. You can here see this. A1 cause activation of the adrenal cyclase. A1 This is probably the noise of big fighter. A1, it causes activation of the adenal cyclase activity. A1 is the toxin, heavy toxin, right? And it may lead to accumulation of the CAMP, and so that there will be, because of this toxin, there will be outpouring of the water and electrolyte into intestine, which leads to watery diarrhea. That is why there is watery diarrhea. Just remember, watery diarrhea and rice water diarrhea in cholera is because of activation of the adenal cyclase because of the toxin produced by cholera bacteria. This is figure, it is somewhat complicated figure. Clinical feature in majority, more than 90% cases are mild or asymptomatic, no symptoms, mild symptoms. Diarrhea with or without vomiting and recover within 1 to 3 days. So like corona, mild or asymptomatic, recover within 1 to 3 days, diarrhea with or without vomiting. 5 to 10% only cases typically have the feature of cholera, and these are divided into 3 groups: stage of evacuation, stage of collapse, and stage of recovery. Right? We are going to see stage of evacuation. Evacuation means emptying of the bowel. So in this 5 to 10% of the cases where there is typical feature of the cholera, first stage is stage of evacuation, empty of the bowel. Right? Emptying of the bowel because of the diarrhea. So onset is abrupt and manifested by profuse, painless, watery diarrhea followed by vomiting. This we have already told. Stool is rice watery appearance. You can see here, right? It is having flecks of mucus. Mucus is present, sweetish odor. Right? Frequency 40 stools per day, not the frequency. About 40 times per day, right? In cholera. Stage of collapse. It is manifested because of the such high amount of the stool passed. Patient may collapse, right? Because of the dehydration. So signs of dehydration: sunken eyes may be sunken inside, subnormal temperature, feeble pulse is weak, BP is not recordable, loss of skin elasticity. I have showed you last time that if you pinch the skin and leave it, it will not be going to the place easily, right? And decrease in urine output. These are all signs of dehydration: sunken eye, subnormal temperature, feeble pulse, BP not recordable, loss of elasticity of the skin, and decrease in urine output. Finally, patient become restless and complain of intense thirst. Because of the dehydration, there is intense thirst, right? And cramps in leg. Sometimes patient may die due to acute circulatory failure. Because of this dehydration, circulatory failure, and patient may die. Cholera sicca is very intense illness, loss of fluid into dilated bowel, and kills the patient before the symptom develop. That is called cholera sicca. Stage of recovery. Patient will show the signs of recovery. Third stage, stage of recovery. Right? First stage was stage of evacuation, then stage of collapse, and now recovery. So these signs of recovery are rise in blood pressure, re-establishment of the urine output, and temperature also becomes normal. Lab diagnosis, here the sample, which sample can be tested? Lab diagnosis can be established by stool. Vomitus is not reliable. Suspected water, if the water is the source from which we may have got the cholera, so that suspected water sampling, its laboratory investigation may be also useful. Or remaining water, food. What if any patient is complaining that this food may have caused the cholera, so that food may be tested. But most commonly, stool may be used for laboratory diagnosis. Stool collection, fresh specimens should be collected and should be collected before the treatment of the antibiotic. If we collect the stool sample after giving antibiotic, then organism will be killed. So in laboratory diagnosis, we cannot see this organism, right? Stool should be collected by rubber catheter or rectal swab. So that is how, this is the rubber catheter method, best method for collection of the stool. And right, not going for detail about this collection of the stool, right? This catheter, this rubber catheter, this is rubber catheter. Right? It is introduced in rectum for at least 4 to 5 centimeter and collect the stool directly. Rectal swab may be also taken, like we are taking nasal and oral swab. Here rectal swab, it is consisting of the 15 to 20 centimeter long wooden stick. This is the stick by which rectal swab can be taken. Before introducing into the rectum, it should be dipped into the transport medium. Cotton should be sterilized by autoclaving. And swab can absorb 0.1 to 0.2 ml of the liquid stool and useful in collecting specimen from the convalescent carrier also, who do not have diarrhea. If you have diarrhea, if any patient has diarrhea, then this stool can be directly examined, right? But this is for worm, this rectal swab as well as this catheter insertion, it is for the persons who are carriers, who may not have diarrhea, who are asymptomatic, right? From them this swab can be collected. Collection of the water, 1 to 3 liter of the suspected water may be collected in sterile bottle, right? And 9 volume of the sample may be added. This is the media, peptone water, right? Food collection, just remember the names only. So diagnosis can be established by microscopy of the specimen, culture, serological test, and biochemical test, right? So in direct microscopy, dark field microscopy, Vibrio cholera organism can be, they may be identified as the shooting star in dark sky. This is the appearance. Shooting stars in dark sky. In dark field microscopy of the stool, these organisms look like. Culture, for culture transportation, and this is required for transportation, VR medium and Carry-Blair medium. This is the part of microbiology, so I am going repeatedly. It may not be important so much in PSM. Just remember the name of the media for culture. The transportation is the first thing. And for this Venkatraman, such full form is there. VR medium used. And culture of the organism, that was the transport media. For culture of the organism, Monsource, taurocolate, terulate, peptone water or alkaline peptone water, these are the enrichment media which are used for culturing of the organism. So in culture you can see such type of the appearance may be seen, right? Alkaline bile salt agar or TCBS, these can be also used. Serological test, just remember the name: agglutination, indirect hemagglutination, and complement dependent Vibrio cholera antibody test. These are used. And this is about biochemical test. This is all part of the microbiology. Right? So that was about epidemiology and clinical feature of the cholera. Still we have time of 5 to 10 minutes. I think we can discuss the prevention of the cholera simultaneously. Cholera prevention. Wait for us just a second. Or we can skip it for, we can keep it for next time also, right? So I think we will take it next time. Cholera prevention, right? Only cholera prevention will be remaining. Okay, thank you very much. Write down your roll number and then leave the class. Write down your roll number. I'm giving you 1 minute. Write down your roll number. I hope you all have written the roll numbers and submitted. Okay, thank you.